Hey, everybody, and welcome to another week of Crunching Your Growth with me, Phil Masiello. And tonight, we've got a great entrepreneur who had a storied career in essentially marketing analytics and things of that nature. And he'll explain it a little bit more, but really crunching big data numbers and trying to figure out big data problems with regarding marketing. But now, retired and fell in love um, um, with uh, with God, what am I doing? With essentially um, scooters and that whole world, and so he's developed a whole business around that whole piece, and he's got a business called Zoom Urban Gear, and really the only company focused on electric scooter accessories. I guess he'll tell you the story. Fell in love with it. I personally have not, ridden scooters, so I really can't compare. But that's why I do the show, because I can hear what other people are doing. But he fell in love with it, and he's doing a great job with it. He's really happy at what he's doing, and I think there's a lot of learning here with how he's approaching it and what his end goal is, what he's happy about, what he likes, what he doesn't like, and some of the obstacles that he's hit. So we'll bring him in. His name is Charles Hammerslough, and he'll tell us his whole story. And
Well, thank you, Phil. I assume you can hear me, and we're all good here.
I can hear you. I had a whole brain freeze when it came to scooters. I'm thinking, I read the whole bio. I've got it, in my head, and I'm thinking, what the heck?
Well, thank you so much. Unlike some entrepreneurs, I'm starting at age 64. So yeah. I'm pretty excited about what I'm doing. I had a long career. I started in academia. I took those skills and started doing what we called marketing analytics. And towards the end of my career, we called it data science. Worked for a lot of large companies. Ended up heading up data science for a number of advertising companies in Chicago. Had some really good clients like McDonald's and Alibaba and Google and so on. And probably the biggest job I ever had was I headed up modeling and analytics for the Obama campaign, re-election campaign in 2012. But after a career of doing innovation in non-tangible things, where I did a lot of innovation in things like databases and algorithms and business processes, I am now finding myself innovating in tangible things that you can touch. That's really exciting. So I'll tell you the story of how I got into electric scooter accessories. I was near the end of 2021. I was retired, kind of bored, the pandemic. So I was traveling in Europe, and I got an electric scooter and rode around. And it was actually a good alternative to getting into a cab, right? So you didn't have to be in the potential danger zone with somebody else. And so I fell in love with it. And in several different cities in Europe, I rented scooters. So I came back home to Florida, bought a scooter, was zooming around, and I said, hey, what kind of accessories are there? And so I went on Amazon. I just wanted to buy a bag to carry my electric scooter around, and I found nothing. And so I sort of thought to myself, well, maybe this is an area that there's a business opportunity, because at that point I was missing working. I'll just be honest. I missed the sense of a shared mission of working together with people. And which I'd had many times in my career. I'd started companies. I've been involved with the whole internet startup. And of course, the Obama campaign was one giant startup. But I missed it. And so I started this company and found kind of my innovation groove again, but in terms of designing physical devices. And so we're in a place right now, we're about to introduce an electric scooter stand. I'm kind of really pleased to say that about 10 days ago, I was told by our lawyer that I'm going to be granted a patent on it. And we sort of feels like we're on our way. I mean, it feels pretty exciting. We were at a trade show last week. We got a lot of retailers interested. We are going to into production in India, and if I could reach it, I pat myself on the back because everybody's kind of trying to get out of China, and everybody told me, "Oh, you have to." It's so easy to work in China, but I didn't really. I felt like there were too many risks around there. So, anyway, that's the basic story.
Can we take a step back? Because when you say you were doing data analytics for like McDonald's, what would you be analyzing? What would you be looking at? What kind of big data is out there for McDonald's? And what were they trying to see? Like, what were they trying to understand?
Sure. So hold on, this thing wants to jump out. So McDonald's had a problem. They had actually twice failed with what's called attribution problems. So McDonald's at that time spent about $750 million on advertising, and they couldn't tell you which advertising was working and which wasn't. They were having trouble calculating the return on advertising spend, ROAS, right? It's a very, very complex problem because it's a complex company. They have many, many channels. And I two pieces of luck. I'm a lifetime learner, and I was working for essentially a startup advertising company in Chicago that where my boss had a relationship with the CMO, the new incoming CMO of McDonald's. So I gave him a call and said, "Hey, can we pitch this guy? He's got an idea." But the other lucky break is I read a lot in the literature. At that time, and even still, I probably spent 25%, 30% of my time just sharpening the saw, right? Always learning more. So this was a massive amount of data. McDonald's sales revenue from every store, every item over a period of a number of years, and then all of their advertising spend, and then organizing all of that. And I was lucky enough to be very familiar with literature with a very new statistical technique called Bayesian causality networks, and was able to make the case that that was what they should use, and they did, and really helped them nail that problem. And the interesting thing, of course, when you work with a company like McDonald's, they will work with a boutique firm like we were, but then they will say, "Oh, great. Well, we've solved this problem. Let's see if we can find a cheaper supplier." So after 3 years, they moved on. And that actually really didn't make me unhappy because it let me move on to the next problem.
So that's sort of that was sort of what you were doing when you say big data, marketing analytics, and things was really
so many companies. Really, it was predictive analytics mostly. So if you have enough data, say I worked for ServiceMaster, and I built a direct mail marketing program. So this dates it a little bit, but in the early 2000s, ServiceMaster was faced with a big problem. In October 2003, True Green, which was the division of ServiceMaster doing lawn service, was no longer allowed to just make phone calls, junk phone calls.
Right.
And that was their major marketing method. So they had to transition pretty quickly. So I built a direct mail program for them. But what that involves is essentially creating a score for everyone in the United States as to what's their likelihood of buying lawn service. Are they in need of lawn service? Do they want to buy lawn service? It's not so different, honestly, from let me just take this one out. From a political campaign that's very interested in predicting who's going to vote for the candidate and who's not going to vote for the candidate. So we were sending 80 million pieces of mail at a time, and it was a big. So I built all the algorithms that targeted that mail, and of course there was plenty of scope for innovation in that, and enjoyed it.
Yeah, that's interesting. The whole attribution piece, I think, has become so much easier, right, in today than it ever been, because with online advertising anyway. And even
Right.
with television, back, I remember when one of my early brands, we were doing television ads. And it was always sort of, you ran these ads, this is what the reach was, but you could never pinpoint it. You could never say, okay, I ran this spot and this is what the direct result was. The only time I could really do it with any form of certainty was when we did overnight stuff, because I could see the sales on the website from when those spots ran. But today with connected TV, it's so much easier. We can understand with pixels on the computer and, on the website and things like that, you can understand every single piece about it.
So yeah, actually, the 2012 Obama campaign pioneered some of that. And I'm going to jump to the punchline, which is that we were running ads at 3 a.m. to ER reruns,
Yeah.
which is very non-traditional. Political campaigns typically will or in the past, would run ads around news shows, right? Because they figured that's an engaged audience. Well, and they looked at the Romney campaign. Other people said, "What are you doing that for? How can that possibly work out for you?" Well, we knew exactly what we're doing because we knew exactly who was going to be watching,
Right.
and we were not so much. So when you're targeting ads in political campaigns, it's to persuadable people. It's not to people who've already made their minds up.
Right.
But yeah, it's gotten so much more precise in 10 years. I have no idea what that's going to look like in 10 years from now. And I feel a little bit fortunate in some ways. Phil, I was a generalist. I was maybe the last of the analytic generalists. People would come to me and say, yeah, because I pull something out of my tool belt. At this point, somebody's an AI specialist, but a very micro part of AI or a micro part of various techniques. It's very hard to master all of it. And I left that business in 2019. I wouldn't want to try to jump back into it, although I did it for many years.
Yeah. No, it's interesting to me. I enjoy the analytical part of marketing, and it used to drive me crazy when we used to do things and especially on television, traditional television, and you just couldn't attribute it. And there was really no way. You could put phone numbers up, you could put those special codes and, go to blah, 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 front slash, get the deal. But those were really not as sophisticated as it is today. And yeah, it's going to be more sophisticated tomorrow as we learn to do things. But anyway, I was just interested.
Yeah,
in that.
no, that was a big issue for McDonald's. They were spending a lot of money on television. A lot of people felt they were underspending on digital, and without giving too much away, I think I helped justify them reallocating a lot of their budget.
Yeah. Well, you're going to have to do it again because as you start your business and you start selling, you're going to need to understand the algorithms at Amazon, the algorithms of search, the algorithms of Google search, and all the pieces that go into attributing, this ad to this sale. And granted, there are tools out there that help you do it, but the decision making is still in your head.
So it's interesting that you mentioned that because my team occasionally reminds me, Charlie, so I started very marketing forward for a startup. I've hired 2 full-time marketers and I've got a fractional CMO by maybe 30, 35 hours a month from him. And they reminded me today, they said, you don't have a team of 15 marketers, okay? You're asking maybe for some precision that isn't quite appropriate for a startup at our level. So for me, it's been having worked so often with big businesses and somebody whose entire job is to create dashboards according to specifications. It's been a little bit of an adjustment. And I did have a couple of consulting companies of my own back in the mists of time. I was actually a college professor at the University of Michigan. And when I left that, I sort of looked around and I said, wow, what can I do? I said, well, because I was in demography. I'm a demographer, actually. That's my professional qualification. I said, okay, marketing. let's try that, and sort of took off from there. But yeah, it's a little bit like I just have to remember I can't wave a magic wand and have the analytics on my table the next day.
No. I mean, in some cases, I mean, it depends on how you build your website and what tools you put on your website and how you attach it. But there's always questions, right? One number that you see leads you to a question, and then you have to go and try and figure out how you're going to get the answer to that question. We have dashboards, but that sort of gives you the high level, right? The dashboard tells you, okay, this is how much I spent, this is how many of this, this is how many of this. But at the end of the day, you say to yourself, well, wait a minute, I did this. How do I look at that? And then you have to go deeper and,
So that's a great point, Phil, because okay, what drives me, what I've always loved about marketing is that it's both science and art, right? You get a lot of numbers, and you bring it to a creative, and then they create something amazing that you couldn't have foreseen.
Right.
That to me, I love. What you were reminding me of is when you see something and you say, that doesn't make sense. Or what's going on there? Why are 15-year-olds buying my product when I'm targeting it to Gen X?
Yeah, exactly.
And that reminds me of I think it was a scientist. The name escapes me, who said that discovery doesn't begin with eureka. It begins with that's strange, right? So there's this constant mix of art and science, and I think that an entrepreneur has to bring both. A modern entrepreneur has to bring both. And it just occurred to me that's really what's exciting about what I'm doing, because we can do the market research. I love market research. I've done a lot of it, and it's a passion for me. And I'm again always being told don't spend so much money on that, right. But I do, because I think we may know enough, right? This is the challenge, right? You always want to. I'm the guy who always got my homework done a couple of days ahead, right? You always want to run ahead, but the hard thing I think that I'm learning as an entrepreneur that I keep relearning is don't buy something. Don't jump into something before it's really appropriate. So the fourth quarter motto for my company is minimum viable everything.
Yeah.
Right. Not minimum viable product, audience, just minimum viable everything. We're going to be good enough until we have to get better. And it's a learning curve for me because I'm always the guy who, wants to absolutely be, I'm a Virgo, right? I'm a perfectionist. I want to get on top of something really fast.
Yeah. Well, that's a good point. I think that there's a lot of entrepreneurs out there that when they start their businesses, and a lot of the ones I talk to and a lot of the ones I mentor, they think it's got to be perfect. And they spend time and they write a business plan and they think, this is what my plan says. And this is how I'm going to go about it. And I always say the same thing. Your plan's going to be shot within 3 months of launching because you're going to learn things that you didn't know happened, that you didn't know, you didn't think about them, and you couldn't have thought about them because you didn't have a live product. And the whole minimum viable product piece, I mean, I've seen and I've worked with brands that go out to launch a product and they come up with this beautiful design and they come up with this beautiful brand and they spend hundreds of thousands of dollars with logos and brands and, with big New York firms. And then they say, they're ready. And I always say, you shouldn't have done that because, 6 months from now, you're going to change it all. You're going to change that logo. You're going to change it because you're going to realize it doesn't work everywhere. And sure enough, it happens. And I try explaining that to people and getting that point across because I'm a big believer and always have been in minimum viable product and minimum viable everything because you don't know what's going to happen until you launch. You don't know what the reaction's going to be. You don't know what the use case is going to be. And then you've wasted so much money and now you don't have enough money to buy inventory.
Yeah. And I've traveled that road. I would add, I would add, just in terms of product development, that avoid, at least my experience is, avoid ID companies, invention development companies. Nobody does everything well. Find hungry specialists.
Yeah.
Who do one thing really well and then say thank you very much, and you move on to the next one. Because if somebody tells you that they're going to take your idea and develop an invention and they're going to market it for you and all that, they can probably point to some successes, but I wasted time and money on that. And nobody's pockets are infinitely deep, except maybe Elon Musk. But and he's had his share of failures too. So let's not and minimum viable products. But nevertheless, yeah, I agree, and we're getting better about that. And also, the other thing that's really important that I believe I have done right is talk to people. Right, just ask them, does this make sense? People who don't love you, right? People who don't really care what you have to say. I've learned more. I will learn more in the first couple hours of a consumer show than in 15 hours of meeting with consultants.
Oh,
right.
yeah.
When people can just look at you and they say, I don't get it.
Yeah.
I don't get it. And that's a hard one. I mean, you got to take accountability for that. They don't get it. All right. Well, that's on you. And so yeah, I mean, we've simplified. It's cost us a lot of money to be simple, but we've definitely gone back because our original design was too expensive. It was over-engineered. It was too expensive to manufacture.
Yeah.
I mean, I'd rather have something imperfect out there that people buy than something perfect that no one's ever heard of.
Yeah. It's it is amazing, what people do, or over engineering. I personally love hearing the feedback of customers about product. I have no thick skin. I mean, I have no thin skin about it. I don't care. To me, there's nothing you can say to me that's better than, I don't like your product for these 5 reasons. I think that's like the greatest. We were in the razor business for a shaving business for a while, and I used to go and we had customer service people dealing with it, and I used to just take and it was totally online, so we knew we knew the customers, and I just used to take the worst calls that we had that week for whatever the problem was. I don't care if it was delivery, broken packages, whatever it was. And every Friday I would call those people and talk to them. And it was just the greatest thing when you get the ornery people who just let it all fly, and they'll just tell you exactly what they don't like. I think your website is garbage. I think this is garbage. And then, within that, you have to find the nuggets of, because sometimes they're very mad and they're just going off on everything. But within there are nuggets of what can be improved. And, I'd listen to them, I take it, and then thank them, and we'd send them a gift, whether it was a free thing of shave cream or something for their time. But even the ones that were angry, who said they would never shop with us again, would come back after those phone calls. But we'd always show improvement, and I loved it. I thought it was like the greatest thing, because if everybody is happy, then I don't buy it. There's something that we're missing, because now we've given ourselves this false sense of security that everything is okay, because all we're doing is talking to the great customers who love us.
Right. Agreed. I was thinking about something. My experience when I was head of marketing analytics at ServiceMaster. ServiceMaster had this great program. Every executive and the company would pay for it. Every executive is required to go out and work at a franchise.
Yeah.
At least 4 or 5 times a year. And a lot of people, just sort of blew it off, but I really loved it. So our brands were Terminix, True Green, Merry Maids, Rescue Rooter. And so, I mean, I've looked at, I've searched for termites under a house in California. I've fertilized lawns in Fort Worth. And I've sprayed trees in Ann Arbor. I cleaned houses in Wisconsin. You know, it's a, and so typically what would happen is the person who was the actual doing the work would say, okay, you just go stay off to the side because I'm going to be busy with this. So I get a chance to go talk to the owner and really find out what they thought of the service. And I would ask them questions like, how did you get into this? You know, what ads did you answer? What moves you? Why do you stay with it? Right? I mean, you've had your lawn fertilized for 13 years with us. Why? Right? I mean, what do you like about it? And it was a great experience, and I learned, I think, a kind of passion for hearing the unfiltered view.
Yeah.
And so as I said, we were at a trade show last week, but I'll tell you, here's the problem with trade shows. Everybody's polite, right? Because they might be doing business with you at some point in the future, or they want to sell you something, right?
Polite.
Yeah. I mean, you know, and I love the consumer shows. We've done them in California, we've done them in Austin, we've done them in Orlando, and I'm pushing the marketers aren't thrilled about it. I mean, they like it once they're there, but they don't like the idea of it very much. Yeah, we got to go do 6 of them this year. We did 2 last year. We got to do 6 because we're going to have packaged product. I mean, this is the really exciting part. When we have boxes of products sitting in a warehouse that we can bring to these shows, that's going to be so much fun. It's just going to be amazing.
What type of shows are you going to?
So the show we go to is Electrify Expo. I can't afford it, but I may go as a tourist to CES. But Electrify Expo is a show. There's 8 of them around the country every year, and it's outdoors. So we have an outdoor tent, which has got its own kind of drawbacks. But every electric car company comes and they let you drive their vehicles. So the value proposition for the people coming to it is for $25, they can drive a Tesla, a Rivian, a Volvo, every electric car that's out on the market. But there's a whole section for people for small electric vehicles. So we talk to people who are interested in electric scooters. So they come zipping up on their scooter and we talk to them about their scooter. We demonstrate our stand with their scooter. So that's a lot of fun. I actually, the first one I went to, I had no product. I bought some gloves, I bought some helmets, and I just kind of pretended I was going to be selling them, asking people what they thought of these various products. But as I say, I'm really excited because we're actually going to have a product to sell that nobody else has.
Who attends it though? Is it consumer? It's
local consumers. Yeah, it's all consumers. And we actually, what we do is we do some local SEO and geo-targeted advertising to bring people to our booth, and then we give them we ask them if they'd like when our product is launched, would they be interested in a 40% discount? Would you please fill out this survey? And we give them and just to make it tangible, we give them a free tote bag, which costs $3.40, but it looks really nice. And it's a tote bag is a good thing to bring to a festival, a consumer show. So it's good experience talking to people, but I don't just talk to people. I like to survey them. So we've collected 250 surveys. Great side effect of that survey is some of the results are things we can go into retailers with, because I know how they think. They need, they may want to do business with me or do business with us, but they have to be able to see the numbers to be able to justify it up the line.
Sure.
So we are showing we're especially looking at people who are shopping for electric scooters, and our I haven't talked about it much, but our product, our flagship product is called the Meerkat. It's a vertical electric scooter stand. It allows you to stand your electric scooter up in your kitchen or your garage. It saves 30 to 50% of floor space for your scooter. And it's a nice solution to sort of consolidate all in one place: your scooter, your accessories, your charger, and all that. And so we did this survey, and we found out, we asked people who were in the market for electric scooters, what's preventing you from buying an electric scooter? What are your concerns? And 31% of the people we surveyed said that they were worried about storage and security. And well, guess what? We have a storage solution. So what we're doing is we're taking that to retailers and we're saying, we're going to potentiate more sales of scooters for you, which is a much bigger ticket item than our stand if you bundle our stand. So, it's art and science, right? We got to go talk to the right people. We got to make an emotional appeal, but you got to back it up with numbers.
What's the type of electric? I'm not familiar with electric scooters in the electric scooter world. Give me a brand of electric scooter that we're talking about.
Sure, probably the one that you're most familiar with is Segway. So Segway, the old things that you'd ride around holding on, they sold that technology to a Chinese company called Ninebot, and so the biggest selling scooters is the Segway Ninebot Max, which it's a private scooter. It's not Lime or Bird. Lime or Bird are the same form factor, the same kind of idea, but this is one that you own. And for about, I don't know, $400, you can get a pretty good scooter. But of course, $400 to $1,000, depending on how many features you want, how fast it goes. The Segway Ninebot Max goes about 20 miles an hour. It goes for about 20 miles between charges. So if you, the use cases that people have for private scooters there's primarily, there you go.
Is that what we're talking about?
That's exactly what we're talking about. I hope I hit the price right. $600. Yep.
Yeah.
And it's foldable. So we count on the foldability of it. So we pretty much, the way our scooter stand works is that you fold it down and you flip it up into the stand. You can go to zoomurbangear.com and you can see lots of demos of it. But the use cases are primarily for urban commuters, because there's no parking, right? Recreational or college users. I don't know about the college you went to, but the college I taught at had 2 campuses. They were about 20 minutes apart, and there would be 10 minutes between classes. So the kids would be like stuck, right? They wouldn't be able to even do their full schedule. They come 10 minutes late to class because the shuttle bus would be late and so on. Another use case is and this is a big use case, is parents of teenagers buying their kids, suburban teenagers in particular, buying their kids an electric scooter, and the kid goes to high school on the electric scooter. This is not a small business, Phil. These things, the average price of scooters sold in 2023 is about $550.
Yeah.
And depending on who you believe, our research shows that it's between about 600 and 700,000 were sold in 2023. And it's probably bigger in 2024. Now, more than 2 million were sold in Europe last year. So this is not small. I probably shouldn't be advertising all this because we actually are the first accessories company in the space. There's some guys who do sort of technical accessories, but we're doing sort of categorical accessories that are very scooter specific. So.
I have a funny scooter story. My son, who's 23, he was 22 at the time, probably. He was downtown. We live outside of Baltimore, north of the city, but only about, I think we're 11 or 12 miles from downtown. Anyway, he was downtown for an event, at a concert or something, and the light rail stops running at midnight, and so he missed it, and he got a Lime scooter. He got a Lime scooter, and starts heading home because he couldn't get an Uber or whatever. starts heading home, and then he had to drop the Lime scooter at another stop because it was running out of battery and pick up another one, which he did. And so we didn't know all this was happening because we were all asleep. And the next morning I wake up and I'm walking the dogs, and I start walking back on the driveway, and I see this bright green scooter in the driveway behind the car. I'm like, what is this? Where did this come from? So we're all talking about it in the house, and he hadn't woken up yet. I said, I can't wait to hear the story. But anyway, he woke up, he tells us the story, and we all had a big laugh. But I said, how do we get rid of the scooter? Because now you can't use it, right? You have to, because now it's locked, right? It makes a noise or starts going on, some alarm goes on. I said, how do we get rid of it? He goes, oh, they'll come and pick it up. So we moved it, picked it up and moved it over to the, over by the garage, but it was there for like 3 days. I said, they're not coming. I don't think they're coming. He's like, no, they'll come. I said, I don't think they will. So I said, where's the biggest drop point for these? And he tells me it's by the thing. So we put it in the car and drove it to the light rail station and dropped it off there because they weren't coming for it.
It's pretty funny.
Yeah.
Yeah. A lot of times they're geofenced. So if you attempt to take it outside the city boundaries, it'll just stop working.
Yeah.
I mean, I was in Berlin, and as soon as you get close to the parliament, Bundestag, I guess it's called, the scooter just stops working. And there's a whole giant line of scooters on the sidewalk where they all died. And you cost Lime some money there, I'll tell you, because they typically have to pay a daily fee to the municipality to license it, like $1 a day. And so, every day it's not in service. I thought the story was going to be that the battery was dead the second he got home, and there wasn't going to be somebody out there. But 11 miles is a pretty long way on a Lime scooter.
No, he made it all the way home. I mean, 2 of them. He had to drop one off because it was running out of battery, and then he picked up another one and made it home. But my daughter goes to UCLA, and when we were out there, that's a campus that's a pretty big campus, and also it's got hills and things, and kids have to get across the campus, like you said, to get to their classes, and you see them whizzing by constantly and at the campus. But I went to Miami, and it wasn't. We just sort of walked everywhere. It was sort of a contained campus, with the exception of where the pool and the library were, which were across close to the water in Miami. But
I'll tell you about another use case that I figured out or understood is so I go to my doctor's office, which was in a hospital. I park in the patient parking. Yeah. And I noticed at the bike racks, there were about 11 scooters there. And so when I was done with my appointment, I just hung out there until somebody came up. I said, do you mind telling me what you're using the scooter for? And there's a nurse, and she said, well, sir, patients can park right next to the building, but we're in surface lots. Some of them are 1.5 miles away if you get in a little late.
Yeah.
And there's a shuttle bus, but the shuttle bus is always full.
Yeah.
So I just popped the scooter out of the trunk, go the 1.5 miles. It's literally a last mile solution.
Yeah.
And it saves me 20 minutes in the morning. I mean, that's kind of huge if you think about it. Every morning and every evening, not to be dependent. And, there's all these a lot of corporate campuses are starting to put electric bikes, electric scooters in, which actually brings me, it's so interesting that you mentioned this, because I'm in this also for altruistic reasons. I mean, I think that in addition to loving electric scooters, I think they're an incredibly energy efficient solution for short-term personal transportation where feasible. To me, it is ridiculous to take a 4,000-pound car to get a bag of groceries, a mile to get a bag of groceries, or to buy a postage stamp or something like that. And the experience of riding electric scooters, you're out, you're getting air, you're getting sunlight, and so on. You're in the community, you see people. it's a bit different. It's a bit like riding a bike, but there's some differences. And I just feel that where feasible and possible, one of the reasons I'm in this is electrification of personal transportation. I mean, I have an own electric car, but an electric scooter is 100 times more efficient per mile in terms of the energy used per mile than an electric car. An electric car weighs 4,500 pounds too. And this is something we do talk about a little bit within the company.
Yeah.
And it enables me to, I think, attract really young, very committed, very idealistic people. One of my marketers is known on the internet as Scooter Girl, and that's her persona. And she's very committed. She does really great work. I mean, and so do the others. I mean, it's an exciting field to be in. People are motivated, I think, to change the world.
Yeah.
A lot of people say they'd like to work on the climate, and there aren't that many jobs that really allow you to do that and get actually paid for it.
Yeah, that's interesting. It's an interesting way of looking at it. But I'm a big proponent of remote working. I always have been. We built a company in the early 2000s, and we were remote. And I think that when you start thinking that way, with the tools that we have today and the technology that we have today, there's no reason why people can't work remote, and you can still manage them. You can still get the productivity out of them, and you can still communicate. But when you think about how many cars are off the road because of that, and how much time is saved, in New York, I think, the average person is in their car an hour and a half on their way to and an hour and a half on their way from work, which is most of the time is pretty. You're just sitting in traffic, so you're just pushing those fumes out. So, I think remote work is also a benefit from a climate perspective. Living in a city and commuting, 20 blocks or 30 blocks, not having to take the subway, not having to get in a cab, just hopping on a scooter and getting 20 or 30 blocks in, I don't know what that takes, 5 minutes, 7 minutes. It's a lot,
It'd be faster, yeah. Or I'll say alternatively, an alternative to that would be you take your scooter down in the subway. Say your office is a mile from the subway, and so you solve your last mile problem that way. But I do agree with you 100% that there's this is a virtual company. I've got somebody in Chicago. I've got somebody in California, somebody in New York, somebody in Jacksonville, Florida.
Yeah.
We have an office in Jacksonville. A little bit because I'm old fashioned. I like to go to the office, but that's just walking distance, scootering distance from where I live. And I actually do it because I'm looking for somebody very specific to work for me. And I can't assume I'm going to find them in one geographic location.
Yeah, no.
And anybody who went to college during the pandemic, as a couple of my people did, they're remote first. I mean, they know how to be productive remotely. I don't, as long as they get the work done that they need to do, I'm really happy. When we did some experimentation with this in the mid 2000s with a group I had, and it's really interesting because some people could be productive and some people they just weren't, and they needed to come into the office, but you had to have one policy for everybody, and that was unfortunate at the time. And I don't think the company would have liked it very much either.
Well, I think you have to do a good job of hiring people, because I'm not good at micromanaging people, and I'm not good at staying on top of you. I'm good at saying, here's what we have to do. this is where we need to get to, and this is when we need to get there. And if I have to stay on top of you to get us there, then you're not the right person to do this, because I tell people that when I hire them, I know exactly what type of person I am, and I'll say, if you need me to tell you every single day what you need to do, it's the wrong job, because I can't do that. And so I've been fortunate in that, we do have an office for where the developers are, and those guys are developers, man. They'll sit there and finish the problem until it's done. They'll sit there for 5 days with one pizza and get the job done. It's a whole different breed. And then the creative people are more, they can work on their own because they need to focus, and they can't stand being in an office because they don't want the distraction. They're creative and they have to think about what they're doing. So for us, it's really about trying to find the right people when we need them. And we've been fortunate because I've really only lost 2 people over the last 12 years that was not their decision. Some of the other people we lost was because they moved on or moved up or did some other things. But really, we've only lost 2 people that were not by their decision. So, which I'm happy about. But we've been doing it. I mean, when we did a beauty brand back in the early 2000s, we were 100% remote. We would go from the shopping channels to, which was marketing it, to our manufacturer, to the warehouse, and so it was great.
Yeah, I think inadvertently we've fallen into a good paradigm, actually.
Yeah.
The pandemic accelerated it. Also, the technology pushed along pretty quickly too. It used to be whenever you do a video call, that was like the first 20 minutes to be figuring it out, figuring out the technology. I think there's a famous thing with Bill Gates when he's like introducing something and he can't get it to work, and he's trying to debug it with the programmers. This is quite a while ago. And you figure if there's anybody who has good programmers, it'd be him.
Yeah.
There's a lot of challenges, but I would say that, obviously you want to keep your overhead low, right? You don't want a physical office. As I said, we have a small office in Jacksonville, but we're also keeping stock there, and we're fulfilling from there too.
Yeah.
So it's not just someplace for me to hang out.
Yeah.
And so it's a little bit of a lab too for figuring out how to package stuff, to how to. Well, I mean, I guess I got to say, I have a lot of materials and tools, and there's a very funny video out there somewhere that Haley made of like the initial napkin drawing of my product, and then there was a PVC pipe prototype, and then the first prototype, and the second prototype, and the fourth prototype, which we've just finally just finished finalizing on. But yeah, it kind of looks like a succession of. Here's the other thing that's a little hard for somebody who's a boomer, is that authenticity is honestly the currency of the game in marketing.
Sure.
And so showing like these experiments and these napkin drawings, and I was like, my first reaction was, oh my word, do we really want to show that? And then I realized, okay, all right, yeah, I mean, it is part of the journey. I mean, it's really part of the journey. And one of the things we're doing that we've conceptualized, how we conceptualize this company, is we want to create essentially a minimum viable audience, actually, of people who are fanatics for our product.
Yeah.
People who just, they will give us suggestions. They'll be our harshest critics and our biggest fans, and that we will be able to count on them. But it's an exchange to some extent when you're building a community. So we're creating a directory of electric scooter repair shops, which is something that needs to be out there.
Yeah.
We are, we're trying to create a community, partially because very often the guy who has the electric scooter just decides to get interested and buys one. He doesn't know anybody else who has one. So
Yeah.
they're very interested in the community. Reddit is filled with lots of discussions of electric scooters. And I felt that way myself. I didn't know it. I just bought one and just started riding it around.
Yeah.
So I think it's really important for us, at least, to build a community. But one thing that we can offer the community is a sense of a behind the scenes view. Right? How do we make decisions? How do we get where we're going? How do we develop products? Who are we? What do we care about? Right?
Sure.
And I think that is really part of modern brand building.
Sure.
Is to constantly be telling a story. I'm not interested in developing a personal brand, but I do understand that I am somewhat the face of my company.
Yeah.
And I'm going to be. Yeah, it's a little uncomfortable, but I got it again. Somebody threw back at me, lean into this comfort, Charlie. Lean into this comfort.
Yeah. No, you have to. All right. Well, we've got about 3 minutes left, so we got to wrap it up. But any parting words? Any last minute thoughts about entrepreneurship or
This is the time of your life. That's it.
That's the time of your life. Yeah, I don't know. I've been through. Yeah, I think it's funny because I think back on whenever I did startups or whenever I did any business, and it was always really, really, really hard. And then you look back on it 10 years later, and you go, yeah, that was a really fun time. We had a really fun time, but at the time it wasn't so fun.
Yeah.
But it's fun now. But it's amazing. It's just it's difficult. I think entrepreneurship, starting a business, doing any startup it's difficult because you don't have the resources that you would have for a big company. You have to keep your resources tight. Therefore, you have to make sure that your decision making is bearing fruit. And because you can't afford to lose tens of thousands or 50, you don't have unlimited money unless you go and raise money in, Silicon Valley and on an idea and you raise a couple $100 million. But for the most part, none of us really have that. And so I think it makes you, because of that, I think it makes you a better decision maker in the long term.
This isn't for somebody who has problems with ambiguity.
No, that's for sure.
Right. You're always making decisions under conditions of uncertainty.
Yeah.
And it's uncomfortable.
Yeah.
You have to, and that's right. I mean, I would quote myself back to myself. Sit with the discomfort.
Yeah. Yeah. 100% right. All right, Charles, I really enjoy it. I really enjoyed the conversation. Thanks for coming on. I wish you the best of luck. And
thank you so much. I appreciate it, Phil. It was great talking to you today. It was great talking to you the other day as well.
We'll check in with you, in a bunch of months. We'll stay in touch. I'd like to hear the progress. Yeah. So, good luck. I hope it all works out for you.
Thank you so much. You take care.
All right. Thanks. And we'll see you guys next week. We're coming up on the holidays, and some of these shows end up on the holidays, so we'll be doing a lot of pre-records. But we've got some great, exciting shows coming up over the next few weeks. So stay in touch, and we'll see you next week. So, Phil's out.